Let's explore the difference between discovery and analysis. And let's correlate the differences to the differences between a little truth and a big truth. Little truth being a lowercase t truth, and big truth being an uppercase T truth. So analysis versus discovery. Analysis tends to be an act of intellect. It's purely mental. Analysis likes to break things down, to understand things piece by piece. This is what the intellect does. It's connecting dots all of the time, and it's doing this by measuring things. Okay, so this is the work of analysis primarily. Whereas discovery involves something else. Discovery will utilize the intellect as well, but it calls upon something deeper too. I like to think that discovery is a work of heart and mind. It calls the soul to action. And so what we find in the act of discovery is a deeper sense of curiosity, a reach beyond the intellect into something we can see and taste and touch and hold and interact with. Discovery tends to seek for the essence of things, and it seeks to understand things in relationship to other things. So we have a difference between analysis and discovery. Analysis being comparatively more superficial than discovery, which is a much more grounded work, even though it can often appear to be ungrounded, because discovery has to begin from a place of not knowing, and that is deeply unsettling to the mind, to the intellect in particular. So the intellect is a left brain movement, whereas discovery can tend to be a holistic mental movement using both the left and right hemispheres of the brain, incorporating all aspects of the self in order to come into contact with something. So let's play a game. Let's imagine that we have a table, and on this table is a puzzle, and this puzzle is in pieces. There are just random puzzle pieces strewn about the table. Scattered across this table are all these different shapes, and on every one of these shapes is a different image. And this is our puzzle. But let's pretend that we don't know that this is a puzzle. Let's pretend that we just have these different bits and pieces on a table. The intellect will look at the table and say, see, here we have evidence of a complete mess. It's utter chaos. An analyst will look at the table and say, that is correct. What we have here is clearly a mess. Another analyst might come along and say, well, hang on a second, and they'll pick up a piece and they'll say, if you look though, this is what's happening on this particular piece. This piece has an image on it. And another analyst will come along and say, yeah, and also check this out. It has a certain shape, and that analyst might measure it and provide dimensions for the piece. And then the analyst will put that piece down and pick another piece up and say, look at this. The analyst has a way of encountering something in a piecemeal fashion, piece by piece by piece. This, by the way, is the primary trap of human design. Human design is an analytical system. The reason that I tend to be very critical of human design as a system is because it is so frequently misutilized. The analytical mind meeting a system like human design will get lost in this mess of puzzle pieces. It takes a different sort of person, a different quality of being, to look at this mess of puzzle pieces on a table and say, well, hang on a minute. That piece looks like it might connect to this piece. And then to discover that it does. To discover that it does. Uh-oh, we've got some traffic issues. So discovery is a completely different act, and what discovery allows for is something that the intellect may never arrive at through analysis. Analysis is imagining that these pieces are all isolated from one another. It takes a curious mind to consider even the possibility that these pieces might connect, that they might exist in relationship to one another. And so now, through the act and the art of discovery, we have the ability to start producing a picture. Now, you and I know that if you receive a puzzle in a box, the original image of that puzzle, the complete puzzle, is ready and waiting right there on the cover of your box. you know what you're going to get. But in our little analogy here, we have a puzzle and we don't know it's a puzzle. And so we're discovering for the first time that these different pieces that appear to have nothing in common actually do in fact connect and produce an image. And so the act of discovery allows for this expanding sense of what's happening here. The image, piece by piece, begins to produce itself, to deliver itself to our awareness. If you haven't picked up on this already, we are the puzzle. We are the puzzle. And our act of living is very much ultimately an act of self-discovery. The real work is one of self-discovery, not of self-analysis, not of self-development or self-improvement. It's one of self-understanding. There was nothing missing in the original spread of puzzle pieces. Every piece was there. Every last ingredient was there. The only missing link was one of understanding. We didn't know that all those bits and pieces worked together to produce an image. You and I have an ultimate image underlying what appears to be true in our lives. It is technically true that this particular puzzle piece measures out to certain dimensions. It is true that this particular puzzle piece has this particular image on it. It is true on a level that this lives in isolation and that it is distinct from and separate from all of the other pieces. This is little t truth. This is the little truth. The big truth, which we know, is that the whole puzzle is actually delivering something in total, and that all of those pieces work together in the end to produce an image. That's the big truth. We each carry a big truth underneath all of our apparent little truths. Those ideas that we've constructed about ourselves, those ideas that we've agreed to that may or may not be true about us, this whole complex of actions and decisions and concepts that we encounter and occupy every single day are typically functioning on a little t level, on a small truth level. They appear to be truth, but they are not yet expressive of the ultimate underlying truth. They carry, of course, the imprint of that truth. Every single piece is a part of that greater truth, and that ultimate truth remains true from the very beginning. Get a sense of this. Once you complete the puzzle, you see the total image, and that total image has been true since the original imprint. What are we discovering? Are we discovering something new? No. We're discovering something that has always been true. Can you get a sense for how important that is? It means that the greatest possible expression of yourself is true right now and always has been. The only distance between you and that truth is a minor gap of misunderstanding. The only thing keeping us apart from that greater truth is understanding. It's our responsibility to discover the truth. That's the opportunity of life, to look at the table and say, yes, it's a mess, but I wonder. We're not here to break ourselves down piece by piece in order to arrive at understanding. That's the work of analysis, and that is not understanding. True understanding, capital U, understanding, is an awareness of the greater story. We are here to discover the truth about ourselves piece by piece, not in isolation, but in relationship. Understanding that every piece contributes to every other piece, and that this image that we are arriving at is an image that will never stop expanding. And we must remember all along the way that this act of self-discovery is an act of self-remembering. That's what we're doing. We are remembering. Get it? All these different members strewn about the table, they must be remembered, brought back together within each one of us in order to deliver the full impact of that original imprint that is ultimately true about each one of us. That is the difference between analysis and discovery. And I want each of you to know, if you've come this far, that my work will always speak to the deeper reality of self-discovery, self-understanding, and ultimately self-remembering. I am not an analyst. I never will be. I am an adventurer and a pioneer, like you.